What's up, guys? Travis with T Customs Productions, tcustoms.com, and I had a question in one of the recent beat making videos that I uploaded, and it's already been addressed there in the comments, but I want to go ahead and shoot a video on this. And the question is, how do you remove drums from a sample? So for those of you who are creating sample-based production, if you're sampling tracks that already have existing drums in them, how do you kind of take those out? I'm just going to do a general overview in this video. I'm actually going to end up linking some more technical videos below. I've done a video on how to add effects to a sample, effects that I add to my sample-based production, and that's going to kind of highlight some of these things, go into more detail explaining exactly what I'm talking about here. So first, I will say technically you could chop around the drums that are in the existing sample. For me, at least in the type of tracks that I usually sample, if they have drums in them, I usually want that sample chop to start right where that drum hit sounds, that kick or snare. Many times it's going to be on the 1 or the 3 or on a whole note, and I want to chop it right at that point. So deleting that drum sample, it might start my sample a little too late and it might sound kind of weird. So that is an option. If you start your slice points and you just chop fully around the drum samples that are existing in the sample, that's one way to remove the drums. But typically what you're going to be looking at is, number one, is filtering and EQing your sample. If you go through any of my step-by-step breakdown videos on my sample-based production, you're gonna see that every one of those tracks I'm adding at least a single band EQ or a filter, a high-pass filter. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna remove the low end of your sample, depending on what threshold you set. Every sample for me is case by case, so if I need to set the threshold higher on my high pass filter on a certain track, then maybe I'll need to do that to make room for other elements and other tracks, the drum and bass and all that. Again, when you're dealing with a single piece of audio, you don't have the luxury of just taking sounds out. What you have to do is you have to EQ, and what you have to figure out is where do those particular sounds, in this case the drum samples, where do they reside in the frequency spectrum, and how can you dip those out or cut those off using an EQ or filter. So the next option would be, to give you a little more flexibility over how you are manipulating the audio, would be a multi-band EQ. And what this allows you to do, more so than just a single band EQ or a filter, is it gives you more cutoff points and more points to adjust on that frequency spectrum. So let's say, for instance, you've got a high pass filter that's cutting off a lot of your low frequencies, but at the same time, maybe you have a lot of percussion or other hi-hats that are really harsh in the sample that you want to kind of tame a little bit and maybe cut out. So what you can actually do is add a multi-band EQ, and that will give you multiple points that you can control versus just the one cutoff point with the filter. You can actually adjust over here if you need to dip out some frequencies. But again, you have to do this kind of in moderation, and it's case by case, because if you dip out too much of the frequency, it may affect the other parts of the sample. So a lot of it's going to be just using your ear to really get your sample prepared for your production. And so my last tip for really helping you clean up the drums from an existing sample, even when a filter and EQ don't quite do the trick, this last technique has really helped me, and it's something, again, that's standard in pretty much all of my sample-based production. And again, there will be a link below that kind of steps through exactly how I do this. But really, it's applying an attack to each of my sample chops, because many times I will chop a sample slice on an actual drum hit. And even though I am filtering and EQing the sample, I may still get little pieces of maybe some of the higher or mid frequencies from that drum hit. And so that's when an attack comes into play. An attack, basically, the best way to explain it really is just a quick fade in of that sample. So when it's triggered, it doesn't just hit right where it starts, it actually fades that beginning in. And if you're coming down right on a drum hit and that sample starts right on a kick or snare, that little 20 to 40 millisecond attack is first off going to allow your sample chops to blend together nicely, and then also make room for your drum samples that you're going to add to it and allow them to cut through the mix a lot nicer. Again, these are just a few of the techniques that I use very regularly when I'm creating any kind of sample-based production. You're going to see me filtering, if that just means a standard high-pass filter. And other times I'll use a multi-band EQ to actually have more flexibility and control over the frequencies of that sample. And then lastly, the attack. That's standard. You're going to see it in, like I said, in all my beat breakdown videos. I've got a video that I'm also going to link below that steps through the techniques when I'm processing a sample. So feel free to leave any of your comments below on this topic if you have any other suggestions or input on, removing drums from a sample, cleaning up the audio, or any other kind of processing that you guys do specifically. Feel free to drop that below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. There are other music production related videos on the channel, and there will be more uploaded regularly. And lastly, if you're a music producer looking for high quality banging hip hop drum samples to really cut through your mix, there's going to be a link below. There's also a lot of other custom sound kits there as well to really help you spice up your music production. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.